Hello, I'm Tammy Goodall. This is my virtual lunch experience with Pamela Reed and her theory of self-transcendence. The setting for my virtual lunch with Pamela Reed was the lunchroom on the Path Unit. We met at the Tim Hortons in the lobby and carried our curry chicken soup and cheese tea biscuit upstairs. It was Wednesday and it was bedlam as we got off the elevator. Our exercise class was just finishing and patients were leaving the small dining room in wheelchairs or using walkers. We had to stand back a bit so as not to be run over. When it was safe to do so, I gave her a guided tour of the unit, explaining the philosophy of the Path Unit as we went along. The last stop was our lunchroom. Pamela Reed's theory of self-transcendence was strongly influenced by Martha Rogers' perspective of nursing and lifespan development theories. Reed's nursing theory focuses on facilitating self-transcendence with a holistic goal of well-being that is inclusive of the context of the health experience. She proposes that serious life events or health changes intensify people's perception of vulnerability and may lead them to transcend self-boundaries and to incorporate the changes in an effort to attain a sense of well-being. Individuals are often able to achieve self-transcendence without help. However, when difficult circumstances arise and they're unable to do so, the nurse can assist in the process. Two key assumptions underpin the theory. The first assumption is that people are essential to and in perpetual interaction with their environment. It is because of this energy exchange that they have the potential to expand their boundaries toward an optimum sense of well-being in all health contexts. The second assumption is that self-transcendence is a developmental imperative to well-being and that progress is observed through outward expression. This is the script of my short lunch interview with Pamela Reed. I enjoyed reading scholarly articles and chapters in nursing theory texts related to your theory of self-transcendence. Many have been co-authored by you. There is a lot of literature about your theory. I understand that there are three core concepts to your theory. Will you please explain the relationship between vulnerability, well-being, and self-transcendence? Reed. Vulnerability refers to an awareness of one's mortality that has been brought about by the experience of a difficult life event, illness, or advancing age. When people experience these challenges, the awareness of their mortality is heightened, and consequently their responses can impact their developmental progress. Progress to self-transcendence can either be positive, where they're able to expand their boundaries, or negative, where they shrink or close their boundaries. Vulnerability sets the context wherein the process of self-transcendence can occur. It can actually motivate self-transcendence. The concept of well-being will vary from person to person due to things like culture, social circumstances, or perhaps the complexity of their life experience. The understanding here is that people are products of their environments. The sense of well-being is personal, but as a general concept, it relates to a person feeling whole and healthy and generally content with his or her state of health. Self-transcendence is a developmental process that results in a heightened awareness of self and the environment, with an orientation toward broadened perspectives of life. It is about fluctuations of perception of self in relation to self-imposed boundaries of self and the world. So, broadening one's perspective to include how one fits within the big picture is an increased awareness of elements in life that are greater than oneself. Read. Self-conceptual boundaries are expanded and fluctuate pan-dimensionally. There are 4 domains: interpersonal, intrapersonal, temporal, and transpersonal. Interpersonal is looking inward toward a greater awareness of one's beliefs, values, dreams. This relates to introspective experiences, how we view ourselves, and how we view others. Interpersonal is looking outward toward other people and our environment, how we reach out to others, how we communicate with the world, and interact with the people around us. Temporal is to do with time. It's looking to the past and to the future and integrating them to give a meaningful perspective of the present situation. Transpersonal is, as human beings, we can expand our spiritual boundaries to see and to connect with dimensions that are beyond our physical world. Tammy, that's me. In much of what I've read, religion seems to be a dominant feature in this domain. Is it advantageous to be religious in order to either achieve transcendence or to help people in the process of self-transcendence? Read. Self-transcendence is the ability to find meaning in something or someone other than oneself. I theorize that self-transcendence can be realized through different behaviors and perspectives. It has been suggested that nurses can help a person to expand his or her spiritual psyche by inclusion of his or her spiritual beliefs. Religion may or may not be a part of their belief system. Is there potential in your theory to improve nurse engagement and work satisfaction? We are chronically understaffed and often unable to adequately meet the needs of the patients on our unit. As a unit, we're experiencing nurse attrition, and nurses are experiencing emotional exhaustion and burnout. Read. In one of two theories of self-transcendence and burnout in hospice and oncology nurses, we examine differences related to self-transcendence between the two groups of nurses. A survey for these nurses was done, and 3 aspects of burnout syndrome, emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and personal accomplishment were examined and related to measures of self-transcendence. The hospice nurses reported higher levels of transcendence and lower levels of burnout syndrome than the oncology nurses. The hospice nurses also reported that there were appropriate resources available to them to help them to cope. Hospice nurses received spiritual training and preparation and death and bereavement training. In the hospice philosophy of care, there's a positive view of and an emphasis placed on spiritual care. This theory was also used to study work engagement in acute care nurses, and similarly, higher levels of self-transcendence correlated with higher levels of work engagement. Tammy, the context of nursing and the studies are not that dissimilar to my practice. Finding ways to enhance transcendence may enable my staff to cope with stress and to find meaning and personal satisfaction in their roles. As per Coward and Reed 2017, self-transcendence is a pathway for helping the healer or healing the healer so that nurses learn to maintain a healthy lifestyle as they care for others. So, perhaps we can extrapolate the ideas for facilitating self-transcendence and the healing process in our patients to enhance the emotional health of our staff. I can see how the theory can provide guidance in this practice situation. I do not see how this theory can provide me with guidance for helping patients with advanced dementia and severe cognitive impairment. However, this population is no longer capable of rational thought, directing their own care, or communicating their needs appropriately. If a person is too cognitive or intellectually deficient to engage in reminiscence, remember life events, or interact with others, they'll not be able to attain self-transcendence, in my view. Dr. Reed, few studies have been done in this population. However, in an article by Vital Schaefer and Acosta Fenton, 2014, it was proposed that full cognitive ability may not be necessary for the essential principles of this theory to be implemented. Therefore, patients in early stages of dementia may benefit. It is possible for caregivers of persons with dementia to realize beneficial personal benefits from self-transcendence principles. This population has been studied. Yes, but Vital et al. 2014 noted that applying the theory was ineffective when the subject was agitated and uncooperative or no longer able to interpret her situation or environment. I would not use this theory to guide my practice with patients who were in the moderate to severe stages of dementia or those with severe cognitive impairment of other etiologies. What I appreciate about the theory is its simplicity and generality and applicability to many human situations with life-altering challenges. I can connect knowledge of this theory to my practice when communicating with patients and families who come to my unit and are discouraged emotionally and deconditioned physically. Many of them cannot visualize how they can regain the independence they require to return home. By helping them to realize that they have already overcome illness and injury in order to get to my unit, I may be able to help them to see that they have the inner strength and capacity to return home when they are given time to convalesce and to achieve a new baseline of wellness.